Huge information was just released by the developers about the future of the armament system in Rise of Kingdoms, and this has huge implications for which armaments you keep and which armaments you recycle. So stick around in this video for very important information about the future of the armament system in Rise of Kingdoms. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and some weeks ago, I gave you very important guidance that you should hold off on recycling armaments because you don't know how armament modification will work in the future. And the developers had promised in a previous face-to-face with the developers that they would change the system. And here we are today with information about the changes to the system. So if you like getting information that's very critical for your account before most people seem to know about it, consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on critical updates like the one that we're talking about today. So here we go. Greetings, Governor. In the previous face-to-face session, we mentioned we would develop a system to change the existing armament attributes. This is what I told you about in the previous video. The system is currently under development, and we've received a lot of feedback and questions regarding it. I mean, obviously you would, because players need to know what they're supposed to be doing. So we've decided to answer some of those questions in this face-to-face. So the first question is, hey, what's the main function of this system they have under development here? And they say it's a system that allows you to re-randomize your existing armament attributes. Now, re-randomize is a funny word, and look, I've got to read this whole thing before we start judging, but the main flaw, as I see it, with the armament system is the randomization. And the solution to randomization is more randomization? I feel like the thing that players are really looking for is control, and randomization is the opposite of control. It's literally rolling the dice. It's going and playing the slot machines. I mean, it's the full opposite of control. Unlike all the other systems in the game, and I'm trying to be constructive, which have incremental progress. Even if you're spending, you feel like you're a genius with the way that you've prepared and allocated your resources with materials and with commander sculptures. Not the case with armaments. It's just randomness, right? So the solution to our randomness is more randomness, but allow me to read on. I'm not trying to be critical, we need to look at what we're getting here, which is that does re-randomization apply to a single attribute or multiple attributes? And they say all three armament attributes will be re-randomized. However, after the randomization, you can choose whether to keep the previous attributes or use the new ones. Now, this leaves me with some big questions that hopefully they'll answer, because does that mean you keep all of the new ones and all of the old ones? Or does it mean that you could pick and choose? For example, if I have an armament with 3.5% health for infantry and 3.5% defense for infantry and troop load, oh, it was so close to being great. If I do this re-randomization and I end up with who knows what, doesn't even matter. Do I get to keep all three of the new ones? Or do I get to keep two of the old ones and one of the new ones? Can I keep my health, keep my defense? And then effectively, I'm only re-rolling that last stat, the troop load. Alternatively, if you add an armament and you roll low values for infantry health and infantry defense, okay, maybe they could roll higher, right? So the question is, do you get to keep all only, or do you get to pick and choose, cherry pick which ones? This gets to be way better if you get to pick and choose. It's way less compelling if you don't get to pick and choose. And the difference here is that it's still very powerful to re-roll, but it dramatically changes what you're going to re-roll, because you would never re-roll an armament that's got 3.5% infantry health and 3.5% defense, even if it's got that troop load there. You would instead re-roll only the armaments with great inscriptions. If you have to keep all three attributes or none of the rerolled attributes, then you would only reroll ones that have just terrible, terrible, terrible rolls, but good inscriptions, and you hope you shoot the moon. That's what that would mean. Now they continue on and they say, does this system only change armament attributes? Can it change the inscription? The system will only re-randomize the three armament attributes, and everything else will remain unchanged. Therefore, we recommend that you hold on to armaments with good inscriptions but poor attributes so you can re-randomize the attributes when the system goes live. Does changing the armament attributes require items? I mean, obviously it does, right? Changing armament attributes will require specific items, which can be obtained from the Lost Kingdoms Crusader achievements the armament shop, etc. So this could be easy to obtain. They could be difficult to obtain. And this has a huge implication about how favorable this system is. I mean, you're hearing me complain a bit about randomization. Well, look, I mean, if it's really easy to get these items, then it's not such a big deal because you can just keep doing it. And let's be real. If we look at the history of games and randomization of attributes in games, there are a lot of games that use randomized attributes. I mean, I played the hell out of Diablo, and Diablo, when you get an item, you could get an attribute that would roll low to high, right? And you could get anywhere in a range, and a part of the game was re-rolling the attributes. So, like, there's an element of this randomness, but the difference between the system we have and those systems in other games is that you have much more control, and you can do a lot of re-rolling, okay? Whereas today we don't have re-rolling per se. You just try for new ones, right? So this could be good. It just all depends on the cost. So if we continue on, does this feature work for all armaments? It's only available for Legendary and Epic. So blue armaments, I mean, re-rolling on a blue armament's a weird choice anyways. And the point of this system is to capitalize on armaments that have good inscriptions but bad attributes, okay? That's really the purpose of this system as far as I can tell. When will it go live? It's currently under development and expected to be available in March. Hey, it's March now, so that's kind of cool. Sometime this month, okay? That concludes this edition of the Face-to-Face with the Developers. We hope you enjoy your journey. And, you know, look, I'll reserve judgment until we know two very critical things. One, what is the cost? And two, can you keep some of the attributes that you had before after you re-roll to see if they're good? Or is it an all or nothing? You either keep all the attributes or none of the attributes. And let me show you the sorts of armaments you keep and some of the armaments you would now get rid of. And also there is a whole nother Q&A that we need to review here, suggestions under consideration. So stick around in this video. We're not done yet. Now, as you may recall, I said hoard your armaments because we don't know how they're going to be changed. So I've been hoarding them, which allows me to give you some really good examples of ones you keep and ones that you re-roll and ones that you get rid of. So if we look at this armament, it's a perfect example of an armament where it's very important to know if you're keeping all three of the attributes after you reroll or if you can pick and choose. Because all I really care about is getting better troop load. Now, it is cool that you reroll all three because theoretically, health could go higher than 3.1. It could go to 3.5. Theoretically, attack could go higher than 3.3. But realistically, it will almost certainly become some stat I don't want, right? So this will be a great candidate for a reroll if and only if you can retain the existing two attributes you like. If you can't retain attributes you like, this will be a terrible reroll because you'd be almost certainly losing your really great roll on attack and health for garbage. Almost certainly. So you wouldn't reroll this if you have to keep all three of the rerolled attributes or none of the rerolled attributes. Meanwhile, here is an example of Phalanx, a great inscription. After using an active skill, troops have a 30% chance of gaining a damage-absorbing shield, damage factor 100. Inscriptions are very expensive to get. So this is really cool, but it's absolute dog doo-doo on the attribute rolls. So this would be a great example of wanting to reroll everything. And realistically, it would still be better, though, if you could retain some of the old attributes if they roll unfavorably. Because look, if you've got 1.5% archer defense over here, and what you end up rolling is, you know, archer health and all damage, but then your defense ends up switching to a troop load. Like if you could keep your old archer defense, do you see what I mean? And then just change the two that you didn't like, that would be way better. But this is a good candidate for a reroll. If you had a double inscription, that could be a good candidate for a reroll. But an obviously great candidate for a reroll would be this one over here. Pulverize. Good inscription. Troops' normal attacks have a 10% chance to deal 20% increased normal attack damage for 1 second. Cooldown of 5 seconds. Okay, cool inscription. All three of the attributes are terrible. Great candidate for a reroll because anything is better than what you see here. And it might become a usable armament, for my account anyways, if it wasn't all these things. And you might be saying, oh, but Chisgule, siege stats are really good now because of ranged. No, these are terrible because this is not a ranged formation armament. Siege stats on anything other than the V formation are dog doo-doo. Okay? I mean this respectfully, but it's like facts. It's just straight facts. All right? We got to call facts what they are about, what is good for your troops and what is not. And I got these weird messages like, Chisgule, with all the, new ranged commanders, you can't complain anymore about all your siege stat armaments on my Hannibal Barca. However, the reason that this is still garbage, even though it looks amazing with all these siege stats, is remember, you can't go into range mode with wedge formation. So it's terrible. They're terrible. They're actually just straight trash. It's 100% lighted on fire trash. Okay? The only reason it wouldn't be that is if it was on V formation. Then this would be amazing. This would be God tier. Be so good, okay? But it's not V formation, okay? And at this time, there's no mechanism to change what this armament is, what formation it's for. If there was a way to do that, now we'd be freaking talking, okay? Now we'd be like, yo, I rolled triple siege. I got the best range march in the game, blah, blah, blah. But that's not how that works. And I don't think it'll ever work that way, by the way, because the way that the inscriptions work, okay? Your inscriptions sometimes are not, there is no equivalent for different formations. In other words, each inscription, if you look in the codex, is specific to the exact armament that you're looking at, which is specific to a formation, okay? So they have different catalogs of potential inscriptions. So, I mean, they could down the road add something that's like, hey, we'll change your armament from one formation type to another, but you lose all your inscriptions. And that still could be actually really good if they did that, but they have not said they're doing that, okay? So this covers what inscriptions you can save and which inscriptions you can junk. I still think it would be a bad idea to get rid of your triple stat really good, armaments, but for the wrong formation, because, I mean, what if they someday add something that lets you switcheroo? I don't know. It seems so unlikely, but also the cost of retaining these 4 armaments is very low. We're just talking about 4. You go through so many, and that's a very important lesson about recycling for this system and in this game, is that you're designed to keep a lot of these. Like, if you think it's like sort of okay and it's not a total junker, you probably keep it. You just put it on some other march, okay? You shouldn't hoard as many as I have, because we were just kind of waiting to see how this system would work, but you kind of get the idea here. If you have an armament that's close to being your best, just keep it. All right, you never know what the heck's going to happen. Let's go and get a look at the community suggestions, because this is also really important for the future of armaments in the formation system. The first suggestion is, please allow governors to skip the animations for travel. It's so frustrating to have my time wasted, and honestly, the dialogue back and forth feels like a colossal waste of my time. I get that it builds some amount of anticipation, and theoretically that gives me more appreciation for the armament that I get, but like, please stop wasting my time. And they say, yes, thank you for your feedback. We're excited to let you know a skip feature has been added. Cool. So they're going to stop wasting my time. That's good news. I'm not trying to be harsh, but like, let's be real. Who likes reading that dialogue for the 100th time you see it, or even the first time you saw it? Everybody's just smashing skip, because the dialogue has nothing to do with anything with the armament. It has no actual implications for, like, a choice you need to make or a thing you're going to do. Would it be possible for the dialogue system to be cool? Absolutely. I mean, if the dialogue system was actually giving you choices about the armament you're about to get, all of a sudden you've got a feature that's dope as heck. Armament customization sounds really cool, even if it ever so slightly increased your chances one way or the other. If you were able in that conversation to make a real choice, like, I'm really interested in infantry stats or archer stats or cavalry stats or all damage, that would be freaking lit. Then the conversation system would be really cool. But as it stands, thank you for letting me skip it. Please add the armament preset feature to save time from having to find the correct ones. Thank you for your valuable feedback. We understand the need for efficient armament management for different commanders. We will introduce optimizations of armament selection in the interface in the update to address this issue. I hope this will be the thing we need. Look, there's too much downtime micro-optimizing your marches, especially if you are a rally leader or a garrison captain. Less of an issue if you're not. But if you are, like, bro, how many swaps are you expecting me to make to put all my best stuff from my field march to my garrison, back to my field march again, but then I'm pulling from like a bunch of different places potentially and rearranging. We've seen this be really frustrating with equipment, to the point where your workaround is, if you're a rally leader garrison captain, just to put your best equipment on like, you know, a march where you can just cold swap from like everything over here to everything over there rather than doing any piecemeal stuff, right? So I'll take all my gear off my Sargon, switch it to my Xeno, and now I've got my garrison, right? Even though I didn't want my best gear on my Sargon to begin with in the field, like at least it's all in one place and I can just, boom, full swap one or the other. That's really good, okay? So hopefully you can do the sort of full swaps you need. And I still feel like a global preset that switches all your equipment and all your armaments would be really good. Do you understand what I'm saying? I want a global preset. I want my Xeno Garrison preset, where I've got my 6 field marches with the armaments, inscriptions, equipment, blah, 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 okay? And I want my full field preset, where I have all my field marches with my equipment, my armaments, all set up, my formations the way that I want, right? I want my rallying with Sargon preset, where it's my field marches the way, you see what I'm saying? You get the idea? Full global presets feels like such a cool idea. I know the interface for that might kind of suck, but like if we could minimize the time that I spend remaking decisions I've already made about what's good where, so that I can actually just play with the things I've obtained, that would be freaking lit. Okay, I'm not trying to come across as a complainer. I'm just saying the swapping thing definitely needs addressing, so I'm glad they're doing some of that. Make it easier to recycle armaments through the commander view. Comparing armaments is great, but when I can clearly see one armament is inferior to another, I want to just recycle / look at them on the screen as well. Let me tell you something. Not all questions are well worded, but this suggestion is extremely well worded. They say, thank you for sharing your suggestion with us. We'll take this into consideration in future updates as we continue to monitor governor feedback. In the meantime, we encourage commanders to take advantage of the multi-select function in armament recycling. I feel like this player hit the nail on the head, and they worded this so intelligently. And maybe there's a better way to say it, but look, I understand that I can multi-select, but what I need to do is compare to what I'm actually wearing, okay? Don't make me memorize what I'm wearing. It's frustrating to like switch between accounts and keep track of it all. It's kind of difficult to do. I have to constantly be like, what's the best I have again on this account? What's the best I have over here? And then like try to figure it all out all over again. What would be really great is if in the screen where you're comparing to here's what's equipped and here's what I'm looking at, to immediately say, recycle this right now. That would be lit, okay? Because the challenge of the armament system is players get flooded with literally thousands of them, and then you have to like pick and choose. And if you could just decide based on what you're actually using right now, that'd be really helpful. Okay, add the option to sort armaments by formation type. Thank you for your suggestion. We're happy to announce that the armament interface will be receiving a makeover in this next update for efficiency of selection and organization. All right, introduced epic range commanders. Hey, we did testing yesterday with range commanders. Card will be up in the top. This was an important round of testing. They say we're exploring the possibility and might introduce them in the near future. Yeah, I think epic range commanders would be cool. There's just one problem, which is that an epic range commander will only be relevant in KVK Season 1 through 3. Epic commanders are literally dead on sight when you get to KVK Season 4 and beyond, that Season of Conquest. I've talked about that in the past, by the way. The reason is very simple to understand. The addition of museum buffs to the game literally killed epic commanders in Season of Conquest. So while they hold relevance pre-Season of Conquest, literally almost every epic commander is now dead in Season of Conquest because of the museum system. I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, but I also think that, like, what is an epic range commander going to do? I mean, for now, we don't have that many range commanders in Season of Conquest, so you would use it if it's what you really wanted to do. But otherwise, epic commanders really can't hold up compared to their legendary counterparts. Up next is to limit the availability of the chat function in the Lost Kingdom to governors with a city hall of level 16 to 25 minimum to prevent trolls from entering. I think that's perfectly reasonable, although honestly, it feels like the point of Lost Kingdom chat is for trolling. But they say, thank you for bringing this to our attention. We're planning to introduce limitations to Lost Kingdom chat function in future updates. All right, cool. Update the censorship system in game as new kingdoms have so many people with inappropriate alliance or account names. Thank you for your feedback on the censorship in the game. We'll definitely take this into consideration and collect more feedback from players on how to limit inappropriate names. You know, funny story. I used to work in a consulting company. And when I worked in a consulting company, I had a client that was trying to figure out what words you could censor and what words you needed to censor. And in order to have a conversation about all the different things that would be censored, we needed to agree on what the things would ultimately be that would be censored. So in order to agree on censoring things without having to say them out loud, there was basically a list of all these curse words. And I can't even say them because YouTube will wreck me, and then a number associated with them. And so you'd say, all right, on the topic of number 100, do we agree that this is a word that we ban? And then it would be like, yes or no. Okay. So anyways, I don't know. I thought it was a funny story. It was a funny experience being in a highly professional setting, and you'd have, you know, like, do we want to be something that people can say? It's like, well... Probably not. So where does this leave us with armaments and inscriptions? And I've actually refilmed this conclusion multiple times because I'm trying to find the right words. And I think what I would say is that seeing these changes is good. I think they're heading in a good direction. But the questions that I asked earlier about re-rolling all the attributes versus some, keeping all versus some, is very important before we can really assess. And also understanding the cost is really important before we can assess. But most importantly, hang on to your really good inscriptions, because now there is an opportunity to turn those good inscriptions into a great armament, even if before it wasn't. And this is very exciting, especially for the people who got legendary inscriptions from doing their traveling. Like my boy War Daddy Chad, just saying. Y'all are going to be in a really good spot because you'll be able to take that legendary inscription and hopefully re-roll the stats until you get some wicked stats. Man, that's crazy. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss critical updates like this one. Sometimes information ends up just in a Discord server. Like in this particular face-to-face and community suggestions, I don't recall anybody else actually doing a lot of talking about this, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on important updates like this. And if you want to see what I think are some of the best inscriptions in the game, I've covered that in a video actually many months ago. Card will be in the end screen in just a second.